computer. All right, and so again, thanks everybody for the recording. Let me just briefly introduce myself once more. I'm Stephen Klontz. I'm one of the co-contributors, maintainers of some of the PreTeXt authoring tools that will be showing off in today's video. Oscar, really quickly introduce yourself again for the recording.
Yeah, I'm Oscar Levin from the University of Northern Colorado. Also helped develop the authoring tool chains for PreTeXt.
All right. Oscar, do you want to take the wheel or should I take the wheel?
I'm happy to do so. I thought what we should do is just have everyone start up a brand new PreTeXt project and get a book built in the next 15 minutes or so. So if you go to the PreTeXt guide, chapter 2 is our getting started tutorial.
I'll put that link directly in chat. If you're trying to navigate there, though, or if you're watching the video, I'll show you how to navigate there. You go to pretextbook.org. And you go to documentation. And the PreTeXt guide is right up top. And since you're here, either watching this video or in this recording with us, you've probably already bought into PreTeXt for one reason or another, but there's a good kind of overarching explanation of why PreTeXt in chapter 1. We're going to look at chapter 2.
Yeah. So we're going to assume that you already have a GitHub account. If you don't, you can quickly sign up. It's free. There are opportunities for you to get slightly more features if you are in education, if you sign up for an education account. You don't have to do that now, but something you might want to consider at some point. So if we just go to section 2.1 using GitHub, this describes, of course, what all of that is. I encourage you to read this at your leisure. The thing you want to definitely do right now, though, is in that section 2.3, you scroll down, follow the instructions at, and there's this URL for github.com/pretextbook/pretext-codespace. So if you click on that, you'll be taken to a page on GitHub as part of the PreTeXt book repository.
This is what it looks like if you're not signed in. I need to open this in my account that is signed in. So
yes.
For y'all.
So if you're not signed in, you can click sign in, of course, log into that. You might see light colors or dark colors, depending on if you have dark mode or light mode enabled.
Ignore what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to show you what light mode looks like.
Okay. It looks like a web page, but the content here is the same.
Yeah, that's not working for me today.
Yeah.
All right.
You could just zoom in a little bit, Stephen.
I could. I should, in fact.
Okay. All right, so there are instructions on this page for what to do, but for everyone just following along, go up to the Use This Template green button at the top. You click on that. You want to create a new repository. So select Create New Repository. This will bring you a page that will let you create a new repository. You can name this repository whatever you want. They give you a suggestion, in our case, fictional couscous, but you can pick whatever name you want for this. Yeah, PreTeXt Tutorial 2024-07-08 sounds
You may not have to add the date, but I do this so often that.
Right.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and.
1,000+ repositories.
Yeah, let's go ahead and walk through these steps one more time for folks, especially folks that are here with us live. So what did we do so far? So there's that direct link in chat someone made. I'll go ahead and walk through the steps to get there again. So you went to pretextbook.org. You went to the documentation, which sets you to the PreTeXt guide. Chapter 2 is the getting started tutorial, and using GitHub is the section that we're on currently. Now it's reloading it. And then here's the link to the PreTeXt code space, which again, Corey, thanks for putting that direct link in chat. You'll want to open that, of course, in the browser that you're logged into GitHub on, or you want to log into GitHub with your free account or create your free account if you haven't already. And then we went to the, I'll go ahead and click it. I'll go ahead and open it up in a tab here. So the button I'm a big fan of big green buttons. And so you have two choices. The one that we want to choose is to use this template, create a new repository. That's going to allow us to create a repository, call it whatever you want. You can use the made up name, something like PreTeXt tutorial with today's date, whatever you want.
I don't see a button. I'm sorry, I don't see a button that says create a new repository on my page. Am I missing
Let's
something?
see here. So if you're not logged in, then it'll look like this. So is this what it looks
Ah,
like? So you'll need to sign in.
yes. So then I have to catch up because I think I need an account. So,
Correct. So that'll be the created account
okay.
right here. It'll walk you through it. So you can go ahead and start going through those steps. But actually, let's go ahead and take a beat for folks because we didn't tell folks ahead of time to make their GitHub account. Uh, any other questions about the steps so far? All folks might be making a GitHub account.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a GitHub account, but it says that my email already exists. So I might have made on the past when I was doing it.
Probably. And so you should be able to recover your password for that existing account, or you can,
Yeah, I'm trying that.
yep. So maybe what I'll do while folks are clicking around is I'll just go ahead and create this repository, and we'll step through the steps one more time when folks might have made their GitHub account. But this is one of the things that we want to kind of, I'll go back to the guide here, scrolling up a bit. There are 3 places on GitHub that we'll be around with today. Repository hosting is at github.com. So at github.com, that is where you will actually be able to share with the public the source code, because we like to encourage folks to work as open source projects so we can all support each other to build bigger and better educational textbooks materials. And so github.com, this is actually a public link. You could create these things privately if you want. Much easier just to make it public. Nobody cares about you. I know people are really concerned sometimes about what if they see my terrible project. Let me assure you, I have many more terrible PreTeXt projects than anybody else on this call, except for maybe Oscar. I just put it all up in the public. I share the link with folks when I need to talk about things with people. It just makes it so much easier for us to support each other if we create these things publicly. And so there's a link to my tutorial there. These are the files that are kind of showing you. We'll open these files when we're actually in a code space here. Here's the instructions for what we'll do in a second to create a code space on main. What else should we talk about, Oscar, while we're stalling a bit?
So I guess we can talk a little bit about where your actual files live. So, and maybe conceptually what we're about to do here. So github.com is a website that hosts these repositories. And you can view that in the web browser like this, but you see a file structure here and this is where your files will live. You know, think about like a Google Drive sort of a structure here. In just a minute, we are going to ask GitHub to create a virtual machine for us where we will do our work in the cloud. In that machine, we can do everything that you could do on your local computer. This is just easier to set up because we have told GitHub how to configure their computer that we're going to use instead of making sure that everyone has the right version of Python and such. When we're in there, we can make edits. Eventually, we're going to want to save all those edits and upload them to the github.com website. So I find this a little confusing sometimes. You have a github.dev virtual machine that you're working on, and you can save stuff there, but you want to actually upload it to the github.com website that you've created. And we'll show you how to do that. It's easy. It's just pushing buttons. But you do have to remember to do that to make sure that you don't lose your changes.
All right. For the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and keep moving. Let me quickly go ahead and summarize the steps one more time for folks that hopefully have created their account. So we'll go to pretextbook.org, navigate to documentation, to the pretext guide. We're in section 2.1 of the Getting Started tutorial at the very bottom, and this link is also here in chat. I'll repost it in chat to this GitHub code space. And then if you're logged in, there'll be a button about right here that says use this template. And so in a new repository. And so now that we've done that, we've created our new repository with whatever we wanted to call it, whatever we want to name it. And then finally, we're going to do that next step, which I should have done already, but I guess we'll have to wait for folks. There's another point we'll have to stall, where we're going to go to code spaces, and we're going to create a code space on main. Again, the big green button is your friend. We try to make sure that's the right thing to do each step. Here, I'm going to click that button, and it's going to create a virtual computer that installs all the software for you, but we're just going to use our web browser. We can just pretend it's just any other like Overleaf or Google Docs. It just takes a few minutes for it to boot up. That is going to take a couple minutes, so thank you, Anurag, for having a question.
Yes,
So-
Stephen. Yeah. So yeah, I created. Yeah, I have my account. I found my account, and it's asking me to create new repository. I do that, right? I give the name for that.
So you want to, once you have the template repository, pretext book / pretext code space.
So
Use this
right now
template.
I'm in the GitHub account, and then I'll create or import. I'll create, right?
You're going to want to go to the pretext code space. I'm putting that link here, directly here in chat. It's github.com /pretextbook /pretext code space. You're going to want to use that template to create a new repository.
Okay. Okay.
So this button, this green button in the upper
Yeah,
right.
I got there. Yeah, I got there.
So create a new repository. So then you'll have something that looks like this, your username / whatever you called that new repository. And then we're going to go to the code button.
Oh, wait.
The code button, code spaces, create code space.
So it should be public or private.
So I encourage folks to make it public. You can do all this private, but if you ever have a
Okay.
question about it that you want to ask the community, it's going to be a
All
bigger
right.
pain to give them access to it if it's private. Let's see here.
I don't see
What-
mine.
So one of the things I'll show off while this is booting up, you can see over here in my github.dev, is that it's going to take a couple of minutes because it's actually creating a whole new computer in the cloud that has all the software being installed for us. So we don't have to do any of that manually. We just have to wait for it to happen magically. But one of the things that we do have, it's a more recent feature that's not in this tutorial, is this little, if I refresh, you'll see this should be a green check mark now. Is that the other nice thing about github.com is that we've automatically set up github.com to actually verify that these projects are valid and buildable. And so this is a great way. If something doesn't work, we can actually go here. It'll be an X. And then the community, this is another reason to make things public, because then we can just kind of go and say, look at the details. And if it doesn't work, probably this step here, build web target with PreTeXt, would have been broken and not working here. And so we could actually see that. We got something in chat here. Yeah, so the code space will install the version of PreTeXt that you specify in requirements.txt. So right now, it's the most recent public version is 2.4.1. I imagine the next version we put out will be 2.5. We've made a lot of updates actually that we need to put out as a new, at least minor release. But I think we'll see actually. If we hit something that we think really needs those updated versions, we'll show you how to upgrade PreTeXt and maybe show off some of those bleeding edge features that are going to come out soon. Anurag, I'm sorry, we haven't answered your question yet.
That's okay. Maybe to summarize, and at the risk of asking silly questions.
Yeah.
The template that we copied, that essentially has all the settings and files that GitHub needs to have so that we can create a PreTeXt textbook, correct?
That's right. And in fact, it probably has more than we need these days, because you
Sure.
can probably set it up so that it generates all those files um, when it installs PreTeXt for you on the virtual machine. But that is it's set up to be synchronized with the most recent major version of PreTeXt, or sorry, a public version of PreTeXt that we've put out.
Fair.
Yeah.
And then the code space is essentially a computer in GitHub's memory or fancy servers where we get to work and interact with those files and edit
Exactly
them.
right.
And so my question is, because I've used code spaces in the past for something else, and sometimes GitHub will send me an email saying your code space is about to expire or get deleted. If we publish something through PreTeXt, let's say I publish a PreTeXt document, and I've been using the code space to interact with it or edit it, if that code space goes away for whatever reason, does the web output remain, or does that go with the code space?
It remains. And so that's the difference between github.com and the code space, which lives at github.dev. As you can think of github.dev, it's kind of like your scratch paper, kind of like your, or even just like your own personal laptop, right? That nobody else can get at. Only you get to it through your web browser. This is where you do your authoring and your work, but we'll show you how you can push those changes to your book to github.com. And that's the official source of truth. That's where you store for the long term your project. And that way, if this code space, which, it just installed a gigabyte or two of software on GitHub servers, they're not going to let you have that for forever. I think the default is a week or maybe even a month. I don't remember what the defaults are. I set mine to like 2 or 3 days just because I do so many of these, which is not typical. For most of you, you're only going to have one, and that's fine just to leave it, up. And that's a month like of inactivity. If you keep using it, it's going to stick around. But the idea is that we're going to show you how you push from github.dev to github.com, and that way, if you ever step away for a month, you can come back and then you can just recreate the code. You can just do what we just did: big green button, create code space on main, and then it'll just redo this installing of software. But you'll have your actual changes to your book. It won't be the starting from completely scratch. Awesome. Oscar has been answering folks in chat. Okay, I've got a working code space. Oscar, what should we do?
Yeah, so I suppose the question is, for anyone, if your window still seems to be loading, just give it a second. But once it's loaded, this is what you will see. You should see a main.ptx file, and that's the content of the template book that came with the template. You can see that there's an Explorer panel on the left of your screen that shows all the files. That's the same file structure that you saw on github.com before you started the code space, but these are now files you can open up and edit. All right, so it's exactly those same files. We're looking at Visual Studio Code, which is a really nice editor, text editor for doing all of this stuff. It has syntax highlighting. It should give you warnings if you try to put something in the wrong place and all that kind of stuff. This is the same thing you could do on your local computer if you wanted to download everything and work from there. Notice that we are main.ptx is in the source folder. There's some other folders. Don't worry about any of that for now. All of your content that you're writing in the PreTeXt book should be contained in this source folder. Now, this book there's a very simple book that has been created. Stephen, why don't you go click on the chapter title.ptx. Now, you could do that from the Explorer, or you could do a control click directly from there, and that'll open up this file. You should be able to see a couple files now, a couple different tabs. So this is an example of how you can include modular files. We included that with an XI include. You can see them side by side there. We've included chapters, the main file, and now you see this is the only content of the main chapter. It was had a text before the first section, and then we included a section, and then Stephen just opened up that section, and you can see, oh, the section title is called section title, and the only content is text of section. Okay, so that's what the content of the book looks like. But let's see what it looks like when we create the web version of the book. If you go down to the bottom of your window, you should see a bunch of the status bar at the bottom, and there is a triangle or an arrow pointing to the word PreTeXt. If you hover over that, you see your version. If you click on that button, it pops up a menu. And yes, we want to build web. Not the entire web, just the web version of our book. We're not recreating the internet. That's beyond the scope of this tutorial. Okay, that was very fast. We now should be done, and you should be able to click View Output. We have two choices here. At this point in the project, probably using the code chat option would be great because you can see it side by side. And this is going to be similar to how an overleaf, when you make an edit on the left-hand side of your window, it'll show the result on the right-hand side. This sometimes takes a little bit. Sometimes it gets broken, in which case you can do the other option, and that will pull up a separate tab in your web browser, and you'll be able to see a preview of the site. Speaking of perhaps being slightly broken,
Let's go ahead and view the full document.
right?
The web. And then the green button will open in browser, or it does it automatically for you.
If for some reason this doesn't show right away, you can try refreshing. So, Stephen, why don't you go back and just do that step one more time? So the other way to view that PreTeXt button down at the bottom, that opens up this full menu. We did build web at the top. You could build another target, like if you wanted to get a PDF version. So now we're building the PDF version. That takes a little longer because it's actually running LaTeX. The other thing is, right now, every time it's done, it pops up that success menu and it says, do you want to view it? After you view it once, you don't have to keep hitting that green view button. I've been meaning to change that, but it's not changed yet. You can always just go back to the site. Okay, but if you go back one more time, Stephen, to that menu, just so we can summarize. So you click on the PreTeXt button.
Just to pause for a second. Do people still see my screen? Yes. All right. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, we forgot to give everyone the warning. Don't use Safari. Safari is a terrible browser. It is broken on many things, including this. So the other thing I want to point out is that one of my tricks with code chat and this whole code space thing in general, you can always try refreshing the page. Sometimes something just gets a little out of sync. And so I'm going to try refreshing and try code chat one more time, and then we'll see if it's going to work with us this morning.
Refreshing will not require that full boot up every time. In fact, once you set up your code space, every time you reload it, it should be very quick because it just has to log into the computer instead of create the virtual computer.
Folks were asking which browser we recommend. Chrome and Edge are both based on Chromium, so they're both going to be pretty comparable. Firefox is pretty robust as well. I typically use Chrome stuff, but that's my personal preference.
Okay, so let's go through the steps one more time. Stephen, why don't you go back to main.ptx. It does not matter what file you are looking at when you do this, as long as you are in this code space. We want to build our book. We want to build the web version, the HTML version. So we click on PreTeXt, and you click on that first option, which was Build Web. So you see a bunch of options there. Just real quickly, let's look at these different options. You can build web. You could build another target. You could preview the file with code chat. That will show a simplified preview of what you have here that hopefully works. Excellent.
Just needed to refresh, told you.
Just need to refresh.
So now we see kind of it's the same as what it looks like over here, but if I edit, you get that nice instant feedback of what the project will look like.
Right. Tutorial to get you started. Every time you save your file using Control S or I strongly recommend putting autosave on because I've been bitten by that often. The other cool thing about this code chat preview is as you navigate around different files, you get the preview of that. Stephen, why don't you click on section name?
So it's in the chapter. It's in the section of the chapter.
Right, and you see that the preview goes right there. Okay, so this is building every time, but just for the code chat preview. If we go back to the window, the other tab that opened up when we previewed the full document.
You mean this one?
Yes, that one there. That has not been updated yet. And I think even if you hit refresh, well, it may or may not update.
I think it does.
Because
it's building to the same place. So.
Right.
But if you want to, because it's only, the code chat only builds the part that you actually are editing, it may not rebuild the entire book. And so it's a good practice if you want to see like this full preview of the full page, not just the little bitty code chat in your editor. It's good practice to go ahead and just do a full build of the web target.
Right.
And now that ensures that the entire book got reprocessed and rebuilt instead of just the parts that you edited.
So it really depends on what sort of workflow you prefer. If you like to have 2 full browser windows or tabs open to preview things, it's a little slower because you remember to build every time and refresh, but it also gives you more space, right? If you're on a small screen, this code chat window and code might be a little cramped. So we provide both options. Stephen, why don't we try to build the PDF and view that? So let's go down back again to the PreTeXt button at the bottom. By the way, you can get the PreTeXt button by doing Control-Alt-P. That's a keyboard shortcut to do that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or if you're on a Mac, I have no idea.
Command-Alt-P, Command-Option.
Okay, yes. You have different keys for some reason. Okay, so we want to build another target because we don't want to build the web anymore, and now we can build print. Builds a PDF. So that builds, takes a little bit longer because it does run LaTeX. Don't go to view output here, just, actually I have no idea what would happen if you do
We're
view
going to find out live.
Okay, and now you definitely want to use PreTeXt view command, and you want to preview the print. Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
All right, there you are. You're in a directory listing, but then you can click on the file and you can see the PDF version of it. And there we are. Okay.
Oh. How'd that go away? That's because I used the view command on a different target, I guess. Interesting.
Yeah, using the view command starts a new server. So.
It's a different port. Okay, anyway. If I want to see what it looks like in web, I can just, in fact, I can just be cheating and just change print to web here.
Okay.
We'll see them side by side. Here's my section. Here's the same section in PDF format. It all comes from the same source. To quote the PreTeXt book website, write once, read anywhere, anyhow. And of course, you would have a Braille version of this as well if you were to make the Braille version. The location of the PDF is in all the build files or in this output directory. It's grayed out because that's not part of your source files, essentially. But you can just click the output. You can click the print And then you can just actually download it directly to your computer. If you try to click it, it's going to try and edit the PDF file from its source, which nobody wants to do that. You just want to download it right here. And then, oh, like what happened to my screen? It opened the PDF on my other screen. So I'll share that with y'all. There it is, downloaded to my computer in Adobe Reader.
All right. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to maybe make a few edits to some of these files to see what happens. When you make edits to a file in a code space, you will see a little number badge on the branching tree-like diagram, which I don't know the correct name for that, on the left-hand side underneath the magnifying glass.
Source control.
Source control. So if everyone could go click on that, please, you should see a list of which files you have made edits to. This is not a PreTeXt feature. This is just how a Git repository works. You click on any of these, you can see exactly what changes you have made. This is like the track changes in Office, but good. That shows exactly what you changed on each line. You deleted stuff. And if you want to go back and you want to revert individual things, you can do that here too. In any event, we have, in this case, 3 files that have been changed. These are files that have been saved in the code space in the virtual machine that GitHub has provided for us. But they are not saved to our GitHub repository. We want to save them to our GitHub repository so that we can view them later. Or if for some reason the code space gets deleted, we don't lose our work. Think of this as, you've done work on your home laptop. You want to be able to access it from your office laptop. So you need to make sure that Dropbox is running so you can upload to Dropbox's server so that you can download again to your other computer. Okay, so to do this, this is just a little bit of Git background. There's a box that says message up there. Stephen, why don't you click on that and enter a little message that says what you've done. What changes have you made? Okay, so you need to put some message there. It doesn't matter what message it is. This is just a note to yourself. When you are done doing that, hit the big green commit button. This is the first time you've done that, something will pop up saying, do you want to stage and commit? You want to do that, yes. You want to do those 2 steps together.
So you suggested just probably people remember.
Yep.
Yeah, just click the green button, or if you're me, just hit always so you don't have to click that green button again. That's a good workflow.
Okay. Now, let's see what we have here. So we have those changes are now hidden behind a outgoing submenu. We can see what those was. This actually shows what the commit was. A commit is basically telling your computer, all of these changes are one sort of thing. These are all like a group of changes that we've grouped together. But these are still just on your work laptop, your virtual machine laptop. We need to sync them to the repository. Well, look, there is a sync changes button. As soon as you click that, it will upload them to your repository. So Stephen is showing here that this is what is on github.com in his repository. That is the old content.
All right. But once I hit sync changes, again, you can click the green button. That's always good. Or if you're me and don't want to have to keep clicking it, say, okay, don't tell me again. This is what I want to do. And then again, this is a good thing to do. Green button right there. Git fetch is going to make sure that, especially if you ever get a collaborator that's also editing the same github.com content, but with a separate code space, that fetch is going to help keep things synchronized between the 2 of you or the however many of you. But now if I go back over here to github.com, I can see that It has been updated. I added title and edited institution. That was my commit title. And then you can kind of see the changes that I made have been here. I can go, if I want to see the history of the project, I see I now have two commits. The initial state was the first commit, and then the change I just made, that synchronized changes, that's the second commit. And so you can see here that that's the initial state. Here's the added title, edited institution. And again, you can see this red, green changes that you just saw in my code space. That's been committed to the public repository so that anyone else who wants to get to my source files can have the exact same history of the edits to the project.
Okay. So we have now saved all our changes. We have previewed what the web version of our great book looks like. If you go back to the if you go back to the tab that has the preview of the book, Stephen.
The tab with
Yeah.
the preview of the book right here.
Yeah, right there. Now, notice what the URL for that is. That is not something you want to share with anyone. In fact, no one else can see this. This is just a view for you while you have the code space running, while you have that server running. If you go to that, and it does not exist for anyone else.
Yeah, that's going to ask me to sign in and say, are you really Stephen? Do you really have access to Stephen's code space? That if anyone else gets that link, they're not going to be able to do it. There actually is a way to share that with other people. It's not something I do very frequently. Instead, we're going to do what Oscar's about to tell me to do.
Right. So let us publish our website, even just for a little bit. Don't worry, no one's going to judge you. Once again, we are going to go down to the PreTeXt menu there, and we're going to go to Deploy to GitHub Pages. You click that, it will run.
Maybe it already ran.
Yes, I think it probably did.
So if I go to
Yep.
github.com, and then somebody asked, how do I get to my github.com repository? Anywhere on github.com, if you want to find your repositories, just click be logged in, click the upper right, go to your repositories, and then it'll probably be towards the top if you just created it today in that list. But now, how do I get to the GitHub pages? Well, I can go to About and use my GitHub pages website. That's my favorite way of getting that link, is just to edit the About tab of my repository. I'll go ahead and walk through that again. So I'm on my tutorial that I just created from the code space. Now that I've deployed once, I'm going to go to this gear to edit the About, and I'm going to tell it to mark my About tab with the GitHub pages website, which is just username.github.io/ whatever I call the repository. And now that I click it, now this link, which I'll put into chat, and I'll demonstrate with an incognito tab. Well, I'll try to. There it goes. Demonstrates that it's a public website link. This is literally how I publish my book, my PreTeXt documents to share with students. So I think someone said they don't have pages enabled. I think that the current behavior of GitHub is to, when you deploy, to automatically enable your pages, but I'll show you how to do that if it's not doing it automatically for you. So if for some reason so again, you must have done PreTeXt in your code space, your github.dev tab, go to deploy to GitHub pages. That's the current method we're doing. And if once you click that deploy to GitHub pages, which running it a second time won't hurt. In fact, it probably just said you didn't make any changes, so I'm not going to do anything in the background. But finally, if for some reason you're not able to get this GitHub pages link, the trick would be I would go to the settings of the repository, scroll down to pages. And again, if it's working, it'll say your site is live at wherever. And if not, then you probably need to tell it to deploy from a branch from the classic pages experience, and then tell it to use the GitHub pages branch not none, not main, but GitHub pages from the root and then save that. This is also the place, if you decide to be fancy someday and make a .com, you could also tell it your custom domain is whatever it is. It won't just do that. You can't just save that and expect it to work. You got to click this and do some extra configurations. But just so you know, you can host this at any .com, .org, whatever that you own if you want to someday.
Yeah, so I have set it up so it uses math.oscar11.com, and whenever I teach, I create a PreTeXt book for the course that I'm teaching, and I just post notes there. And this is not correct.
Anyway.
But if you, so it turns out, because that's the custom domain I have, if you do that and then go / like math 495 - fall, whatever the repository is, that's the course website for my course, all in a PreTeXt book.
A clarification from chat, if your repository is private, you can use GitHub pages, but they will be public. Even if your repository is private, the GitHub pages will be a public link. It may not be, no one will find it probably unless you shared the link with them, but you can, even if this is a private repository, I could copy this link and give it to anybody and it would still work.
Right. The other thing is, unless you have paid for the upgraded GitHub or use the educational discount to have that fee waived, you cannot have, at least currently, and they keep changing what's part of it. Right, so it's saying you could upgrade to make the repository, you could upgrade to make a private repository have a GitHub pages, or you can make your repository public and then you get a GitHub pages no matter what. If you use the GitHub education discount, that's like upgrading, but for free.
Yeah. Free pro features.
Right. If you had set your repository to private, but want to change it to public, if you go to settings in your repository and go up to general, which would be the thing you see first, you should be able to scroll down to the bottom where it says, watch out, don't do anything here, the danger zone. And you can change repository visibility. So you can change visibility between public and private as much as you want. What I do for my courses is I have the GitHub education discount. So I have that ability to have a private repository with a public web page. So for courses I build, I make them private because I don't want my students to see necessarily the exams that I'm writing that are stored on there, but the web page that I build is still going to be public for them. Yes, you can upgrade an existing account to get the education discount. There is a link in the PreTeXt guide, but as Stephen is doing, github.com/education.
Yeah, I think they just changed that, but education.github.com will redirect you to there.
And go to teachers and you can sign up. The type of documentation they need keeps changing as well. For me, it was just clicking a box saying that, yes, I am, and using my .edu email address. Now I think they want to see either a profile page on the university's website or perhaps a pay stub. I mean, they say what to do there. They generally are pretty good about giving it to you, and you get it for like 2 years, and you have to then reapply every 2 years or something like that.
Let's see, I've done this for almost a decade now, over a decade now. Just keep asking every 2 years to re-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can share a private site. So if your private repository, if your repository is private and then you publish to GitHub pages, that link is a public link that you can share with anybody you want.
And if you want to collaborate with someone else on a private repository, you can do that as well, so they can actually see and make edits to your repository. There's a way to select collaborators inside of GitHub.
Settings, collaborators.
You can give them various.
Gotta give it the permissions.
Right.
This is a pretty, you have to trust the person, of course, because they could do some nonsense if you don't trust them.
But there are
But
different permissions you can set for what they can do. Like, can they delete the repository? Or
so now Oscar has an invite. If he wanted to edit this, he could.
all right. So those are the main features of how to actually create a PreTeXt book, save your work, build it, deploy it to a website if you like. There's lots of PreTeXt stuff, which is actually the editing experience, which we'd be happy to discuss with you. But maybe now's a good time to see if there are questions.
Yeah, we'll do this in two parts. I'm going to keep the recording going. So if you think there's a question that would be good for posterity, we'll start with those questions, and those will be in the recording. And then when we're out of those, I'll turn off the recording. You can tell me what you really feel at that point. So, any questions that we want to have on the record for future pretexters?
So I'll start with a question that I've set up a code space, and I'm going to assume at some point I will just be busy and the code space will have expired and gone away on me.
Mhm.
I've saved the files to the github.com account. How do I bring everything from the github.com account into code spaces?
That's a very good point. So let me just show you by example. I'm going to go to a pretty elaborate example, my linear algebra. We've got about half a dozen folks that have contributed this over the years. And so if I go to GitHub, and I almost certainly don't have a code space for this book, even though I've made many commits on it over the years. But I'm just going to go back to that repository while logged in. I have access to the repository, which means I can go to code spaces, create code space on main, and that's it. It's going to rebuild it, that code space from all the source files that are available to the public at github.com. And again, it's going to take it a couple of minutes to actually go through and do all the business. But once that's done, I will have a functioning code space again. The only way you're risking losing information is if you have this little badge here. If I were to change this book to be my greatest book, and then I never actually took that change and committed and synced it, if that code space dies, that change is lost to history. So it's a good practice. It's like saving your work, right? It'll save, code spaces saves to your code space aggressively. Like you don't even have to hit Control S to save it. It'll just save it to the code space. So you can close your browser, open it up on a whole other laptop, and get to that same file. But the trick is for actually committing a change that you want to be stored for perpetuity, you have to commit and sync that change. Oops, it's going to yell at me because this is the worst user experience ever. It's a very Git sort of thing. If you forget to put a commit message, it's good that I did it because I always forget to do it. It gives you this scary looking commit edit message thing. You could just type it, here's my message, and then you close that out. It's awful that it should just give you a pop-up window, something that's much more nice for humans, but that's just how it is. So that's the scary bit. If you forget to tell the message, it'll give you that thing. You can just put it in that window. But I'm going to sync those changes now. So now my greater book is now my greatest book in perpetuity. If I go back to this other tab, still booting, but I promise you that eventually that'll give me a working version of the linear algebra textbook that I did not have a code space stored for.
So follow-up question that you may tell me to ask offline. I set up a get repository on my machine and made that the main site. How do I make the main site the one that's on GitHub rather than the one that's on my machine?
Yeah, I'm gonna pause for that maybe after we're done with the
Okay.
recordings and the getting started tutorial. But in general, if you're watching this and you have the same question as Mike, you have a PreTeXt project that you want to start using the CodeSpace workflow instead, the one that you may have collaborators also using, feel free to connect with us on a GitHub support, or sorry, PreTeXt support, and we'd be happy to help with that. Or just
Okay.
uh, the other really quick answer, I guess I'll try, is that what may work is simply push the latest change from your local machine to github.com. And
Uh-huh.
then you could just do what I just did with the linear algebra. Once it's there, we've actually been secretly putting all this GitHub stuff in the latest versions of PreTeXt, whether or not you're using it or not. It's wired up. If you have an updated version of PreTeXt, it's possibly wired up. If not, we can help you wire it up. And it may just work going to code and create code space on main.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. Any other questions for the recorded part of this workshop?
So I had written this in the chat, but Oscar, you mentioned using PreTeXt for courses, including like writing exams. So do you use a different structure for that, or is it like the same book setup?
So I have used a textbook setup with just chapters that represent different sorts of things. And I actually don't write my exams in PreTeXt yet, but I have started writing worksheets or activities, some homework assignments directly in PreTeXt. Next week, we're having a workshop on PreTeXt for small documents, and one of the goals is to create a structure that is better for a course that will have the ability to have all of these things and get them out individually nicely. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I
Very cool.
don't know if
Thanks.
it's like literally next week, so I don't know if you're still accepting new participants, but in
Unfortunately, we are
general,
not. We had to make the hotel reservations.
okay. Well, I will just say in general, if you like open source textbooks, I'm going to shout out the American Institute of Mathematics, who's been a huge supporter of the PreTeXt and adjacent projects. They often host. Uh, this time it's not at their actual site, but they're supporting the uh, workshop in Ohio. And then in general, the project's open textbook initiative. A lot of these books are PreTeXt authored books, not all of them, but many of them. Other things that David, I'm going to get to your question, but before we stop recording, I do want to shout out a couple of things that are happening in the near future. The other thing I might point out is that I have a book written in PreTeXt, of course. It's going to redirect me, or I need to set up that as a redirect. It's now at codeformath.org. G4m.codeformath.org is my GitHub for mathematicians text. And so it has, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of how to handle all this, here's what's happening with the commits and branches and collaborators. There's a nice little picture of what's happening in the background. If you want to learn a bit more about how all that works, but written for an audience of you, that's the goal. My goal for this book. I should say this is not just for mathematicians. If anyone's not a mathematician, I really should have called it GitHub for Dummies, but really it's GitHub for academics. Maybe the best title. But there it is. I have a workshop that I'm running at MAA Math Fest next month. If you're going to be there, you can still sign up. That's a mini course, excuse me. And then I think, Oscar, are you helping me with, yeah, you and I are doing the joint math meetings with talking a bit about Copilot AI stuff as well. So those are two opportunities to kind of get into the weeds of not just PreTeXt projects, but other, I do my research projects, pretty much anything I do that's collaborative and digital has a GitHub repository attached to it these days. It's just such a useful tool once you learn how to use it. I think that's it for any plugs for events that are coming up in the near future. David, what's your question?
Okay, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'm thinking I'd like to migrate lots of the tech stuff I've done. I understand HTML. I'm scanning the PreTeXt guide. So I should be able to just directly bring some LaTeX over and then make some modifications to obey the syntax, and then I should be publishing my LaTeX online. But what kind of features do I have? You mentioned students that had other conditions, maybe blindness, they need some other accommodations. How do I verify that these things are accessible to various categories of students?
So the philosophy is you shouldn't have to verify, you shouldn't have to care. If you're writing things in PreTeXt, then the PreTeXt software is taking care of things for you. That is somewhat aspirational. If you have to, of course, if you create a diagram, provide the alt text for that diagram. If you insert certain sorts of interactive things that probably don't exist in your current LaTeX, those would not necessarily be accessible in the Braille output. It would be like a Braille link to a thing that probably couldn't be interacted with by the student. But if you're sticking to just kind of static content like words and images with good alt text, then things should just be taken care of, including mathematical notation. That is taken care of for you. If I go over to my math right here, you'll see here that it's in being processed by something called MathJax, and I'm not an expert on this. If I activate the accessibility, holy moly, I've never done that before. Maybe that was a mistake. Or maybe it's only if I'm actually using a screen reader. But in any case, the good news is I just shouldn't have to, right? Even though I'm not the accessibility expert, there are people on the team that are. And if I write in standard PreTeXt, then the users that actually use the accessibility features, okay, apparently refreshing, got it. Anyway, lots of different tools here that people who need it know how to use better than I do. And so it's just taken care of for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the recorded part of today's workshop?
I had a quick question. So I haven't learned LaTeX. It seems like I wouldn't really need to because this handles all of that. Is that fair to say?
The only exception to that would be the mathematical notation is in LaTeX. So if you saw me, I kind of did this in a blink earlier. If I go back to my section here, so I did some math, and you can see that this is kind of LaTeX. I can make this even more x equals fraction, negative b, plus or minus square root. Don't judge me if I get this wrong. Pretty sure this is it, but I am doing this live. So if I go ahead and preview this with code chat.
It's not on a screen share though, so we can't see. So
Oh,
if you messed it up, it's okay.
wait, you can't see my screen?
We can still see it.
Oh, I must have pressed something. I don't know.
Yeah, I've still got my screen sharing, but
Okay.
in any case, especially hopefully it is for the video, the recording of the video. It's
Oh,
okay.
it is. Yeah, I didn't realize Zoom has tabs now. Sorry.
Yeah, I just updated my Zoom today, and it's got a few different buttons than I was used to. So here's my hopefully quadratic formula is correct, and if I want to make this kind of like a full line ME for math equation instead of just inline math, there's my so LaTeX things like making fractions with frac, PM for plus minus, squirt for square root, have access to all of that. Mathpix.com is being recommended by Honorog. I'm a big fan of Detechify. You can just Google Detechify. That's how I get to it. And then if you want to do some sort of mathematical notational thingy, then I can draw theta, and hopefully it gave me some options for theta. There's the one I actually want right there. As you can see, there's different options there. So now I know how to put a theta into my document. Oh, there's the linear algebra textbook that I booted up earlier.
I will say that Snip will take stuff that maybe it's not just a single symbol that you're looking for, but if you have a bunch of stuff that's handwritten or even poorly typed, you can just take a screenshot of it and it will give you the tech output. And then if you know enough to get into trouble like I do, you know how to fix it if something is ever so slightly wrong. But it does the heavy lifting for you.
What's the link again? Snip?
It's
If you just go to mathpix.com, Snip is, I guess, one of their things that you can download to your desktop. So it just sits there. There is an app for an iPad as well. So you can actually write on it as you would just in a note writing app, and it will give you the tech output. It's quite nifty. So it doesn't have to be just one symbol at a time or one equation at a time. You can dump entire pages into it. And they've actually done pretty well with uploading, say, 100-page PDF scan from a scanner, and it'll do pretty well to convert that to tech.
I'm not familiar with this, but I trust Anurag on that one. I will say just for clarity that everything that we put into the actual code space environment that we provide to you is free and open source. It looks like that Snip has a free version that you can get to, although I don't believe it's an open source product if that's something that is important to you. But it looks like it's something that you can get at for free. So, all right. Anything else? Well, before we hit end recording, and you can tell me your deep dark secrets.
Excuse me. Yeah, Stephen. It's my personal question, I guess. So, but the way you guys write on the top and bring the command, for example, you put like a build there, right? A pretext tutorial 2040 and something on the top there, the Cody space bug free stick. I think I did it wrong, or my Cody space is legendary parakeet. I don't know why
Ah,
I'm seeing this.
yeah, so it's your code space has a different name than your repository. Mine is
Okay.
bug free fish stick. It's just a
Uh-huh.
made up thing. Don't worry about it. Nobody else besides
But
you.
it's not showing me the things that you guys are showing there. Like for example, if you type the build there, so could you please type that so I can see from here? So build
What do you want me to do?
whether your arrow like yeah, they are build print, but I can't see that from on my end.
So if you go down to your
If
pretext,
I write build, it says that test space build.yml. I don't know why.
uh, that's probably something that we just got to look at specifically on your machine.
Okay.
I probably can't help with that right now.
So yeah, and it is also asking me on the bottom, it is asking, do you want to install the recommended GitHub action?
Ah, I know what's happening. So you clicked over here in this GitHub folder, these YAML files right here. You could ignore
Uh-huh.
those. Just close those out. You don't have to install that GitHub Actions thing. This is something that's doing some magic in the background, and it's going to be even better in the next version of PreTeXt. But that's where this green check mark is coming. It's just some automated configurations that we maintain for you. That if you're pushing things to GitHub and you're like, oh nuts, I can't get this to work, you can just send us a
Mm,
link to your GitHub repository, and we can, without having to create our own code space or anything, we can just see what if it's building, what's wrong with it, and how to fix it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. All right, folks. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording here then. But we're gonna hang out here until the end of the hour for folks that want to just try stuff out, or you can share your own screens. And maybe I could see what you're doing there, Manoj. But yeah, feel free to hang out until the end of the hour or ask further questions. And for those watching online, thanks for joining us. One more thing I should be pitching here. If you go to pros.runestone.academy, I mentioned the pros consortium thing, I think at the very beginning, maybe before I even hit record, but this is the ecosystem for folks that are involved in PreTeXt, Donut, WebWork, or Runestone. We have a Discord server that's a great place to ask any of your questions, especially questions that kind of span multiple products here. If you're only interested in PreTeXt and you want to get at like Rob Beezer, the creator of PreTeXt, and some of the other folks that are on the Discord, the other place I'll point you to is PreTeXt support, which is actually at groups.google.com/g/pretext support. I'm pretty sure you could just search for pretext-support in your favorite search engine and it'll send you here. But this is a place where you can post questions and answers about pretext.
Mm.
And that's another good place to get support as well and connect with the community. Anything else, Oscar? All right, end recording. Thanks for being here with us on the recording.